stream. And we are now live with another Tech Talks. Hello, everybody out there in YouTube land, and anybody in our Zoom room that also joins us, which, you know, sometimes we will show up late, which is totally great. We're happy to have them. Nick was going to talk about content accordions in Canvas.
Yeah.
This is kind of in the same vein as content tabs, which is a topic that we've done a Tech Talk on in the past, where you can kind of hide and reveal different pieces of content based on how people are clicking on it. And tabs are great. Accordions are also great. Does something similar in a different way, and I think they have different use cases. And Nick has some fantastic examples ready to show us of what that could look like and how you might want to use it.
Yeah, thank you. Great intro. I don't think I have anything to add other than we might. Accordion's a little bit of a misnomer. We're kind of basically doing collapsible content boxes.
Sure.
I think we used Accordion because Canvas used to have accordion function like tabs, but then they got rid of it because of accessibility concerns. So we've essentially built a new way to do it.
That is accessible.
And that's the cool thing. Keyboard accessible, screen reader accessible, whole 9 yards, which isn't something I get to say very often. Great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up an example assignment, and the assignment we're using today is tilted.
On that a little bit.
Oh yeah, good call. Let's get that nice and
there we go. That's
there we are. Okay, so I've got an assignment, just a little example one that we built. But the important thing is it's really long, and I think this is where we're kind of seeing a lot of instructors tilt their assignments. It's great to have transparency, but it's always difficult to kind of balance that length versus, you know, are the students going to read all of it because it is so long? You know, we want it transparent. Is there information that we can kind of, expand and collapse as necessary to make it a little bit easier to flow through this and not have people skip over things?
Because we know that some students really, really appreciate lots of detail and examples and criteria and objectives. Some students really appreciate that and really want it, and other students don't.
Yeah.
Or maybe they want it at the start of the quarter, but later on they don't need to see it over and over again. And then some students do need to reference it every single time. So how do you find the balance for both kinds of students?
Exactly. So what we've got, tilted assignment, it's just an example, but we've got our purpose, isn't too lengthy. We've got our task, which is pretty lengthy. You'll notice this is like a health or fitness consultation with Fox Mulder. So we've got David Duchovny in here. But as I keep scrolling, you'll notice there's a lot of content in here. It just kind of keeps going and going and going. We finally get down to criteria for success. We have some materials. But kind of the thing is, you know, some of this might be boilerplate. Some of this might be consistent across the course. So how could we potentially collapse some of this, give people the options like Caleb was saying? So what we're going to do today is we're going to build these little drop downs, expandable, collapsible dialog boxes, really accordions. And for example, I've created 2 different versions of this assignment. One is we are collapsing that kind of boilerplate information. So here are the objectives. You know, some students might just pass right over them. Some really need it. I know I was that kind of student. Or how will I turn in my assignment? You know, that would probably be the same for certain types, and students might feel like that's really self-explanatory. Others might not. So you don't really need that information front and center, but you still need it there in the assignment page. Or things like, say, how are assignments graded, that kind of grading scheme information we have at the bottom. So all of those would be something that we could collapse to just help somebody navigate all of the content on this page. Alternatively, we could have somebody, keep most of that stuff open. Because,
the tilted portion of it.
Yeah, because it wasn't too much for this specific assignment, but we had that huge list of things during our task portion of the tilted assignment. So we could, in a sense, create an accordion where all of that information was a drop down instead. So we have either, I guess we've got kind of 2 different modes you can take. You have information that might be boilerplate and not exactly necessary for every student that goes in an accordion, or you could have essentially the really important stuff in an accordion, especially since it might be a lot longer than that kind of information. But you kind of go one or the other and try to keep it consistent. That way somebody doesn't go, oh, well, I had to click into the accordion on this assignment, but maybe I don't for the next.
Yeah.
They might decide to either skip or not skip, and then it could kind of defeat the purpose.
Yeah, I like both use cases you have here. I think they're both really great, but I don't think I would want to mix and match them.
Exactly. Yeah.
What I really like about this version, though, is you also kind of styled it so it looked like a medical notepad, and you click on it, and it becomes a little bit interactive, a little bit, just even a tiny bit gamified, where they're opening up. Okay, here's the vitals. Okay, let's look at the work background. Let's look at the health history and the diet and everything. To me, this is much more engaging, both visually and tactilely engaging, than just having a great big block of text for this.
Mm-hmm.
I think that students are more likely to engage with it, more likely to actually read each section rather than, because we know from there's good research that the human eye and the human visual system kind of gets lost. It has to scan through large blocks of text when there's no visual breaks or anything like that. So this really gives the eye and the brain time to say, okay, I'm going to look at this part. Now I'm going to open and look at this part. And I really like the way this looks. I think it's super cool.
Well, and not to kind of belabor the point, but you do mention kind of visual breaks.
Mm-hmm.
This I think is awesome, especially for that huge amount of information that students will need to go through.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I mean, this kind of creates those natural breaks.
Yep.
Even if somebody isn't clicking in here, they know that there's going to be a natural transition between the purpose and the task now.
Mm-hmm.
And now maybe between this task element and the later content.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of using just a standard break, you can create a break, but also use it to contain some content that could or could not be essentially used.
Very cool.
So we've got these two different versions. I think we should just show you kind of what's under the hood and how it actually works. The great thing is it's all in HTML, pretty easy to build, and it doesn't really take too much. So let's jump over into the version that I haven't edited yet. And let's just, for example, let's just use this objectives right here at the top. I'm going to jump into edit, and I'm going to go into our HTML editor. And all I really need to do is just a couple of things. We need to add something called details. So we're starting off this details box, and that's what this is really called under the hood. We're calling it accordions or drop downs, but this is what HTML code refers to it as. And then instead of a heading 3, I'm going to select summary. And the important part here is this summary is what helps make this accessible. So this is going to be the title for that box, or the title for the accordion. And then I come down, and this is all the content that I want to be in there, so I don't have to change that. Sometimes what I like to do, because we'll be styling it a little bit later, is put a division in. And then I'm just going to close that details. And then if I come back, I should see there's my summary or my title. And then that arrow has been created. And if I click on it, it's basically a button.
Yeah.
So all of that happens with just details and summary and then closing it. So when I save this, this will now be closed up when you load the page. And I click it, unclick, then it's doing all of that work for me.
Yeah.
So super easy, but now we can kind of style it like Caleb was saying, where we can kind of control the flow, make it a little bit more visually appealing, a little bit more engaging.
So what I like about this so far is that part is very straightforward. You don't really need to know any advanced HTML. It's really just those two tags,
Exactly.
details and summary. And then if you want to get fancy, you can get as fancy as you want with the styles and colors and backgrounds, but you don't have to. You could just do this, call it a day, and you've already made a collapsible details area.
And I mean, we styled it, if I come over here, to be a kind of full page width. You can make it look like a little button. That stuff's pretty simple. And it's all using kind of the same thing under the hood. So maybe what I'll do is, let's just take this example. and let's try to recreate it over here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in, and so we've got our details, got our summary. The summary is where we're going to do most of the actual styling. The details tag is just the container for all of it. So let's see, what's our time looking like?
We're doing great. It's 1:15.
Okay, so I'm just going to take, let's just use this background color that I used for the other. So we're going to background, add a little hex code.
HTML color code.
And then let's do this. Probably can do a border. I've been doing about 2 pixels for any borders that I've got. It seems to work. Oh, whoops, work the best for this. You kind of lose things if it's lower than that. Let's do solid. Whoops. And then I'm just going to do, this is just a standard color code for gray. And then let's just kind of see where we're at. Close it up. Oops. There we go. So we're getting there. We've got kind of a box created, light on the outside. And maybe what I'll do is I'll just use our standard kind of tool set in here to center the objective. And I might need to actually go text line, center. If not, I'll probably just pull the code. There we go. So that's like that. And then because I made this division here, this is where I can kind of create the background for that information. That also helps with kind of the flow. Otherwise things could get lost. Yep. So I'm going to make another style element. Let's just use that same gray. And then that should close up, come back. There's a quick text box. Maybe I want to make this bold, and maybe I want to make it a little bit bigger. Maybe that's a little too big. Hey, there we go. Cut the difference. Great. I'll click save. Let's just see what it looks like. There we go. Quick text box.
Yep.
It opens up. We can change the padding, change the margins on it.
There's all kinds of styling that we can do that's a little more advanced.
Yeah.
And we would love to help somebody with that if they wanted to.
Exactly. And
if they have a fancy idea in mind and they want to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
But even just some really basic stuff like putting a color on the background makes a big difference.
Yeah, it kind of helps with that contrast too. Yep. And now, like we kind of talked about before, it's a little bit more of a break between the purpose and the task now. So
Nick, you mentioned earlier that this is keyboard accessible.
Yes, which I find extremely exciting because not a lot of the tabs aren't, for example, if I remember correctly.
Right.
So if I on my keyboard hit tab and enter, I can do all of this, navigate to the different elements on the page, and this is the role of it is like a button. So a screen reader will also be able to jump right to it.
Great.
So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, super slick.
Slick and easy. That's
yeah.
If we can get that to happen, that's like
the
unicorn.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, we could keep going. We can ask for questions, comments. I mean, like I said, this stuff is, initially pretty simple. You can get pretty complex with the stylings. Like
what are some other applications for the details tab besides this? So we have, in this case, using it in assignments that are tilted to kind of hide and feature different bits of information where you want it, which I think is good. Another thing that I have been using it for in our newsletter page is as another accessibility feature is a transcript for a more detailed image. So in our newsletter, we have the comic, and that's got a bunch of imagery. It's got a bunch of text and dialogue, more than I could put in the alt tags of an image. So what I end up doing is I put up the comic. Yeah, go ahead and let's.
I figured this would be a great example of it in action. So
I put up the comic. It does have an alt text on it that says transcript available below, and then
and there's that.
Yeah, alt text. Make comic transcript below, and then I use the details tag there, and you open it up, and it is a more descriptive script of the comic. So I try to put everything in there, and now it is fully accessible to somebody with a screen reader. Their screen reader what the screen reader would do is it would say,
image, May comic, transcript below. And then it would say button, comic transcript. You click on the button and then it reads out the text of the transcript. So that is very accessible for somebody that is using a screen reader. But it also doesn't fill up the page with information that other people may not need to see. So it's all inside of that toggleable button. It's available for anybody that wants it, but it's not filling up the screen for somebody that doesn't want it. So that's another use for the details tag that I like.
I think I've seen it also for like drop down contact information on a homepage, things that might not, like we kind of talked about, be necessary for the actual flow of the document, page, assignment, what have you.
Yep. You use it for like a little bit of differentiated instruction on, I think, on one of the faculty development modules that you did.
Yes.
Where if there's like some kind of technical step-by-step type of thing that some people might need as a reference, but other people don't, you would put it behind details. So maybe the details say, maybe it's I'm just trying to think of an example.
Well, I mean, I could imagine it for like, for some of these examples, you know, kind of like how are assignments graded? I could see it as like, how do I take a video and submit it? Like it would be elements that maybe I would know because I've been online before, but maybe another student might not.
Yeah, maybe your assignment, maybe your assignment instructions say, I would like you to submit this as a Google document. And then you have the details. How do I share a Google document link? Well, students that are Google Doc savvy, they know how to do it. Somebody who doesn't, they have that information.
I think Jerry was going to say something.
Probably.
Jerry, are you talking to us or are you talking to someone else? I don't think Jerry's talking to us. I think he doesn't realize he's not muted.
That was like a perfect.
Do you need us to repeat these? Wow.
Okay.
That was a perfect answer too.
It was probably. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of different applications for this. It's a super simple technique in HTML. You don't need to know very much of the technical side of it, but it's a great way to curate and organize large amounts of information in a way that is accessible to everybody. Can we just look at your one with the notepad again, just because I really like the way this looks, because this takes an extra step up. It's not just hiding and displaying information. It's also turning it into it looks like a physical object. It looks like a notepad, and it adds a little bit of an interactive element to it, which I love. Adds a little bit of visual flair to it, which I love, and super easy to implement. You did this literally in 10 minutes before this session.
Yeah. And to be honest, I was just trying to find colors to kind of differentiate meaning. In this case, you know, we've got all these drop downs, and somebody might not know whether it's important or not. And Caleb was saying like, maybe you should take it a little bit further. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah. Just kind of jump in, and then all of a sudden, 10 minutes later, we basically made a little fake notepad.
Which I think is super cool.
Yeah, and it's not a big load, but it provides quite a bit of assistance with how somebody's working through the content, which, it's just, it's useful, it's nice. And you don't even have to use the details tab for something like this. You could put a lot of your like tasks or things in similar formatted elements on a page. I mean, you could use that kind of skill across the board. Just to signify tasks that need to be completed or what have you.
Sure. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, and kind of like running out of great things to say.
It's super straightforward, but it's a great tool to have.
At least we perceive it to be straightforward.
But again, you know, if this is something that you are interested in implementing and you want our assistance, we are happy to sit down with you and help you build this out and style it to your liking and make it look cool and add some detail to it. Happy to do that. I'm just curious if anybody either in the Zoom or in YouTube maybe participating on the chat, if there's anything about this that is sparking your creative juices, any ideas you're thinking about of using a tool like this in one of your courses. But if not, that's okay too. We can call it a day because it's at 1:25, so we're right along. We'll end a little bit early. That's okay.
Hey, keep it simple.
Cool. What's our topic
next week? I
Next
cannot
week?
Remember.
Well, hey,
oh yeah, we
just
have
so
a comic disc
happens
right
I
in front of
have
us.
it
Let's-
open.
Let's look and remind ourselves.
Image maps,
Image
that's right.
maps. Yes.
That'll be a fun one, basically creating clickable image files that somebody can navigate
Mhm.
in Canvas. So it'll be kind of a fun one to navigate.
Yeah, that's another HTML trick where we can add some interactivity into what would otherwise just be a static
Mhm.
page. So again, that one's requires a little bit of HTML knowledge, but not much, because we have a handy tool in our back pocket that we will share with you next week. And I think that's it for today
Yeah.
then. Thanks for coming.
Nice, easy Tuesday.
Yeah, we'll see y'all next time.
Have a good one.
Okay, stream is ended.